Welcome back to part 2 of Living Simply, What No One Told You. If you've come this far, thank you for staying with us. The heavy cost of a crowded life. Let's continue exploring the Imagine waking up one day and realizing that your life feels like a room overfilled with furniture, so packed that there's no space to walk, no room to breathe, and certainly no peace. You're surrounded by things, possessions, tasks, responsibilities, expectations, and yet, somehow, you're starving. Not for food, but for stillness. For space. For simplicity. We live in a world that constantly whispers, more is better. More money. More clothes. More productivity. More followers. And the louder this voice grows, the more our inner peace shrinks. We're taught that happiness is just one purchase away. That success means always being busy. That to stop moving is to fall behind. But what if we've been lied to? What if, in our desperate pursuit of more, we've unknowingly traded away the very things that make life beautiful: presence, clarity, time, connection, and joy? This is not just a philosophical question. It's a personal one. Because buried deep within ancient Buddhist teachings lies a quiet revolution, a way of living so simple, so freeing, that it threatens the trillion-dollar industries built on your distraction and discontent. This isn't a guide to minimalism for Instagram. It's a roadmap back to yourself. And the truth is both radical and timeless. When you stop chasing, you begin to live. When you let go, you gain everything. In this article, we'll explore 10 powerful lessons drawn from Buddhist wisdom and real-life experiences that reveal why living simply isn't deprivation, it's liberation. We'll walk through the illusions society sells us, share moving examples of how simplifying your life transforms your mind and relationships, and end with the most profound treasure of all, the freedom to just be. So if you're tired of feeling like you're always running but never arriving, read on. This journey is not about losing what you have. It's about finding what you've lost. Yourself. Part 1: The Illusion of Accumulation. Have you ever built a sandcastle at the beach? You bend down, scoop wet sand, shape turrets, carve moats. It's your little kingdom. But no matter how detailed or grand, the tide always comes. Slowly, steadily, it erases everything. That's life. We spend decades building castles, only not of sand, but of things. Cars, houses, designer clothes, high-paying jobs, digital followings. We decorate them with awards, titles, curated photos. But deep inside, we feel a quiet unease. What happens when the tide comes? What we own eventually owns us. There's a saying, the things you own end up owning you. And it's painfully true. Let's take an example. Imagine someone finally buying their dream car, a sleek, luxury machine that cost more than a year's salary. At first, it feels exhilarating. But then comes the parking paranoia. They start avoiding crowded lots. Then the maintenance costs roll in. Suddenly, they're checking tire pressure more often than they check on their own mental health. What once brought joy now brings anxiety. This is the paradox of possession. What we think we've acquired has, in truth, acquired us. In Buddhist philosophy, this is seen as a form of attachment, the root of suffering. But it's not about condemning material things. It's about seeing clearly. Objects, by themselves, are neutral. What brings suffering is clinging to them. The tighter we hold on, the more we fear losing them. And fear quietly suffocates joy. Letting go, a story from the real world. Several years ago, I met a woman named Lila during a silent meditation retreat. She had once been a high-powered corporate executive, with a wardrobe worth tens of thousands, and a penthouse overlooking the city skyline. From the outside, she had made it. But inside, she was hollow. I thought I was collecting freedom, she told me. But I was actually building a prison. She left it all. Sold 90% of her possessions. Moved to a small cottage near the mountains. Now, she volunteers at a local school, teaches yoga, and lives on a fraction of her former income. But the sparkle in her eyes? That can't be bought. The less I own, she said, the more space I have to breathe. Try this, the liberation experiment. Take a moment to walk into your living space. Pause. Look around. Pick up each object and ask, does this serve my peace or my ego? Keep what brings genuine joy or utility. Let go of what exists only to signal status, nostalgia, or fear of lack. Here's a simple exercise. Today, choose one thing you own that you rarely use, a fancy kitchen gadget, an expensive pair of shoes, or a piece of furniture, and give it away. Not because you must, but because you can. Feel that strange, quiet relief? That's the soul breathing. From owning to experiencing. The deeper insight is this: the more we accumulate, the more we fear losing. And the more we fear, the more we shrink from life. But when we let go of clinging, we unlock the world. Without the burden of protecting things, we become free to experience them. To enjoy a sunrise without photographing it. To eat a meal without posting it. To wear clothes that feel like us, not like a brand. You don't have to give up all your belongings to live simply. You just have to stop believing they define your worth. Reflect, what are you really holding on to? Ask yourself, is there something I'm afraid to lose? Is that fear dictating how I live? What would happen if I released it? It may be something physical, like an expensive item. Or something more subtle, a job title, a role you play, a curated image you show the world. Often, the heaviest chains are the ones we cannot see. Part 2, the value of enough. The bonsai wisdom, small by choice, strong by nature. A bonsai tree will never stretch tall like a mighty oak. But it doesn't try to. Instead, it grows in quiet harmony, its energy flowing inward, its form shaped through deliberate care and intention. Each branch is trimmed not to restrict, but to strengthen. There's deep wisdom here. In a world where bigger is better is a default belief, the bonsai reminds us, growth without direction is chaos. Expansion without awareness leads to burnout. And most of all, having more doesn't always mean living better. The illusion of infinite desire. Modern life teaches us to hunger endlessly. Every ad, every social feed, every trend whispers the same message: what you have is not enough, what you are is not enough. But here's the thing, desire is infinite. It cannot be satisfied by addition. Every time we get the next thing, our mind creates a new next. A better car. A newer phone. A bigger house. The chase continues. We've become marathoners on a treadmill. Running furiously, getting nowhere. In contrast, Buddhist teachings offer a quiet rebellion, a powerful reminder that peace begins the moment we define our enough. A modern tale, the executive and the janitor. Let me tell you about two men I once knew, Kevin and Ramon. Kevin was a senior executive at a multinational firm. 6-figure income. Corner office. But he often looked exhausted, restless. He never had time. His phone was always ringing. He was always chasing something more, a promotion, a deal, a bigger bonus. Ramon was the janitor at the same building. He earned far less. But he whistled while he worked. He knew every employee by name. He brought his own lunch and shared extra fruit with interns. He lived in a small home with his family and spent weekends in his garden. One day I asked Ramon how he always seemed so content. He smiled and said, "Because I know what enough looks like." That stuck with me. Kevin had everything by society's standards, but felt empty. Ramon had less materially, but overflowed with presence. Abundance, I realized, is a mindset, not a measurement. Try this, define your enough. Enough isn't a number. It's a boundary you lovingly draw around your life. Ask yourself, how many clothes do I actually wear? How many rooms in my house do I truly use? How much income would allow me to live peacefully, not extravagantly, but contentedly? Then take a bold step, write it down. Not as a goal, but as a declaration. For example, 3 pairs of jeans, 2 pairs of shoes, and a few good books, that's enough for me. A job that pays my bills and lets me be home by dinner, that's my success. This exercise isn't about deprivation. It's about intention. It's about taking back control from a world that profits when you feel like you're never enough. Reclaiming life through limits. When we define enough, we stop reacting to life and start designing it. Suddenly, you say no to overtime that costs you your health. You stop upgrading gadgets that work just fine. You begin choosing presence over prestige. A curious thing happens when you simplify. Your time expands. Your relationships deepen. Your energy returns. Life feels full, not because there's more in it, but because there's less noise and more meaning. What's stopping you from declaring enough? Most people hesitate because of one of three reasons. 1. Fear. What if I let go and later regret it? 2. Ego. What will people think if I don't keep up? 3. Habit. I've always lived like this, I wouldn't know who I am without it. But each of these is just a story. Fear fades when faced. Ego quiets when ignored. And habits? They bend beautifully when we begin asking better questions. You don't have to renounce your home or donate everything you own. You simply need to stop feeding the belief that having more makes you more. Perspective shift. The two travelers. Imagine two people with the exact same suitcase. One feels grateful, I have all I need. The other feels lacking, I wish I had more space. The difference? Not the suitcase. Just a mindset. Enough is not something you chase. It's something you choose. Part 3. Mental clarity through subtraction. The overstuffed backpack of the mind. Picture this, you're hiking a steep mountain trail, but your backpack is overstuffed, packed with things you thought you'd need just in case. With every step, the straps dig into your shoulders. You're not moving forward, you're dragging yourself. That's how most of us move through life. Not just physically, but mentally. We carry too much. Old regrets. Useless possessions. Dozens of browser tabs open. Unfinished to-do lists. Hundreds of apps and subscriptions. 1,000 mental notifications blinking non-stop. And we wonder why we're tired all the time. Subtraction is a spiritual practice. In Buddhist thought, simplicity isn't about minimalism as aesthetics. It's not about having white walls and perfect organization. It's about clearing space for clarity. The Zen saying goes, empty your cup so it may be filled. You can't hear the quiet voice of intuition if your mind is screaming with noise. You can't connect deeply with others if your attention is split in a dozen directions. Subtraction is not loss. It's refinement. A story of two desktops. I once worked with two creative directors. One had a digital desktop filled with files, hundreds of icons, screenshots, half-finished drafts. The other had a clean screen with only 3 folders. Guess which one produced better work? The cluttered one was always overwhelmed. He kept jumping between ideas, never finishing. The other? Calm, focused, present. His mind mirrored his workspace. The difference wasn't talent. It was mental clarity. We don't realize how much external clutter feeds internal chaos. Try this, the 10 out of 10 subtraction practice. Here's a challenge. Today, remove 10 things from your digital and physical world. Delete 10 apps from your phone, especially the ones that drain time without nourishing your mind. Remove 10 items from your home, gadgets you never use, clothes you never wear, or even decorations that no longer inspire you. Don't just throw them in a drawer, let them go. Give them away. Discard them. Release the energy they've been occupying. Then pause. Breathe. Notice how you feel. You may discover a strange and wonderful lightness, not just around you, but within you. Subtraction beyond the physical. Decluttering isn't just about stuff. The most profound clutter we carry is often invisible. A toxic friendship we've outgrown. A belief that we're not enough. A story we keep telling ourselves about failure, rejection, or regret. Letting go of these is far harder than tossing out an old sweater, but infinitely more powerful. Imagine your mind as a garden. If weeds aren't removed, even the healthiest seeds will struggle to grow. Sometimes, growth requires not addition, but clearing the space. The monk's lesson. In a monastery in Thailand, a monk once shared this insight with me. People think peace comes from more meditation. But sometimes, it comes from fewer distractions. He lived in a simple hut with no electricity, no running water, and only 8 personal items. Yet he radiated more calm and focus than anyone I'd ever met. He told me, "I don't waste time choosing what to wear. I don't clean what I don't own. My space is quiet, so my mind is, too." His life wasn't empty. It was essential. Reflect. What's weighing you down? Ask yourself, is there something I'm carrying that no longer serves me? Do I check my phone more than I check in with myself? What thoughts take up the most space in my mind, and are they even true? Subtraction is not just decluttering, it's liberation. Every item, task, or belief you remove becomes a doorway to peace. Part 4, the burden of owning. The crack in the vase. You buy a beautiful porcelain vase, delicate, expensive, elegant. You place it on the shelf and admire it every time you walk by. Then one day, you notice a tiny crack. From that moment, your relationship with the vase changes. You don't just look at it with appreciation, you look at it with fear. You move it to a safer place. You check on it daily. You dust it carefully. You worry when guests are nearby. It no longer brings you joy. It brings you stress. This is the burden of ownership. Every item we acquire comes with hidden costs: time, energy, maintenance, attention. We think we're adding value to our lives, but often we're simply adding weight. The ownership trap. Society tells us that more possessions equal more freedom. But in reality, the more we own, the more we must manage. A bigger house? More cleaning and repairs. A luxury car? More maintenance, insurance, and worry. Fancy tech? Constant updates and troubleshooting. A closet full of clothes? Endless decisions and clutter. We don't just buy things, we become responsible for them. Slowly, subtly, our days begin to revolve around objects rather than experiences. And even worse, many of these things were never truly for us. They were for our image, our status, our illusion of security. A day in the life of maintenance. Try this experiment. For 1 week, track how much time you spend maintaining your possessions. Looking for lost items. Cleaning things you rarely use. Updating apps you barely open. Organizing drawers that never stay organized. Most people are shocked to discover they're spending hours every week serving their stuff. In essence, the roles have reversed. You're no longer the owner. You're the servant. A real-life example, the closet clean-out. A friend of mine, Sarah, once invited me over to help her declutter. Her walk-in closet was so full that she'd started storing clothes in her guest room. We began the process by sorting items into 3 piles: keep, donate, and unsure. After 2 hours, she looked at the donate pile and laughed through tears. These clothes. I haven't worn most of them in years. Why have I been hanging on to them? The answer was simple: identity. Those items weren't just fabric. They represented past versions of herself, the businesswoman, the traveler, the younger me. Letting them go felt like saying goodbye to stories she no longer needed to carry. But the moment she did, her face softened. Her closet looked lighter. And so did she. Try this, the ownership audit. Choose one category of your life, like kitchen items, books, electronics, or clothes, and ask, do I use this regularly? Does it bring me peace or stress? Am I keeping this out of guilt, fear, or ego? Then begin to release. You'll find that some items have been quietly draining you, not just of space, but of energy. Letting them go is like cutting invisible threads that have been holding you back. Beyond possessions, ownership of identity. There's another form of ownership we don't talk about enough, the identity we're afraid to lose. We cling to job titles, achievements, roles we've outgrown. We protect our reputation like the fragile vase. But in doing so, we limit our ability to evolve. Letting go of these internal possessions is even harder, but it's also more freeing. What if you weren't your resume? What if you didn't have to prove your worth through your output? What if you could simply be? Buddhist teachings remind us, attachment leads to suffering. Not because possessions or success are bad, but because we build cages out of things meant to be temporary. Reflect, do you own this, or does it own you? Ask yourself, do I truly enjoy this, or am I afraid to lose it? How much of my time is spent maintaining what I once thought I needed? Could letting go actually bring more peace than keeping? Part 5, Letting Go as Liberation. The balloon in your hand. Picture this, you're standing on a hilltop, holding a helium balloon. The string wraps loosely around your fingers as the balloon pulls gently upward, eager to rise. But you grip tighter, not because it brings you joy, but because you're afraid to let it go. You tell yourself you're in control. But are you? In truth, the balloon wants to fly. The only thing preventing it from soaring is you. This is what clinging looks like, not just to things, but to people, identities, past regrets, and stories we've told ourselves for years. Letting go feels like losing. But in truth, letting go is gaining back your life. The hidden weight of emotional clutter. Most of the things that weigh us down can't be seen. They're internal, grudges, guilt, unspoken pain, past heartbreaks. We carry old stories like stones in a backpack. We tell ourselves that holding on protects us from pain, from being hurt again, from forgetting who we are. But really, it only limits us. One of the most powerful Buddhist insights is this. You can only lose what you cling to. The Buddha. Letting go doesn't mean you forget. It means you release the control that memory has over your life. It's a choice to prioritize peace over pain. A personal story, the letter I burned. Years ago, I carried deep resentment towards someone who had betrayed me. I thought forgiving them would mean excusing what they did. I believed that holding on to the anger gave me power. But the truth? It gave me poison. One night, after months of meditation and reflection, I wrote them a letter. Not to send, but to release. I poured out everything, the pain, the confusion, the grief. Then I burned it. As the paper turned to ash, I cried, not because I forgave them, but because I had finally forgiven myself for carrying that weight so long. It wasn't for them. It was for me. That moment changed everything. Try this, the fire ritual of release. Choose one unresolved burden. A painful memory. A person you haven't forgiven. A version of yourself you no longer wish to be. Write a letter. Say everything you've been too afraid or too proud to say. Then, safely, burn it. Watch it disappear. Let the flame symbolize your liberation. This is not about erasing the past. It's about choosing not to let it define your future. Letting go is not equal to giving up. Many people think letting go is weakness. That it's passive. But it's the bravest act of all. It means choosing stillness over control. It means trusting life enough to stop forcing. It means opening your clenched fists and saying, whatever comes, I will meet it with grace. Letting go creates space. For new relationships. For new insights. For the peace that was buried under years of holding on. Like a bird perched on your shoulder, peace only lands when you stop flailing. The truth about control. We cling because we think it keeps us safe. But much of life is outside our control. The people we love may leave. The plans we make may unravel. Even our health and strength are impermanent. The only real control we have is how we respond. And the most powerful response is often release. When we let go, we don't fall, we rise. Reflect, what are you still holding that no longer serves you? Ask yourself, what memory, regret, or role is holding me hostage? Who am I refusing to forgive, and at what cost? What would it feel like to live with open hands rather than closed fists? Part 6. True wealth is invisible. The empty teacup. Imagine holding an empty teacup in your hands. At first glance, it seems useless. There's nothing inside, no liquid, no aroma, no warmth. But if the cup were already full, you couldn't pour anything new into it. Its emptiness is what gives it value. This is the paradox of true wealth. We are conditioned to measure success in material terms, money in the bank, cars in the garage, stamps in our passport. But Buddhist wisdom turns that idea upside down. True wealth is not what you accumulate, but what you make space for. When your calendar is packed, your mind cluttered, your shelves overflowing, you may be full, but you are not free. And without freedom, what is all the wealth for? The myth of material riches. Let's talk about the rich. Not the inner rich, but the visible kind, those with luxury lifestyles, million-dollar homes, and seemingly perfect lives. Many of them work around the clock, travel constantly, and live under immense pressure. They may look rich. But ask yourself, do they have time for silence? Are they present with their families? Do they sleep peacefully at night? Now contrast that with a retired farmer in a rural village. He owns little, but he has time. He knows the names of birds. He eats with his family every night. He wakes up with the sun and sleeps with peace. Who is wealthier? A story, the monk with no money. In northern India, I once met a monk who lived in a tiny room with only a mat, a robe, and a bowl. I asked him, "Do you ever wish for more?" He smiled and replied, "I already have more than I need, peace, purpose, and enough time to love people fully." He didn't own anything, but he lacked nothing. His wealth wasn't in possessions, it was in presence. He was rich in stillness, rich in simplicity, rich in freedom from want. Try this: audit your time, not your wallet. Most people regularly check their finances, but almost never check how they spend their time. This week, do a time wealth audit. For one day, track how you spend your hours. How much is spent chasing status? How much is spent in silence? How much is shared with loved ones? How much is wasted in meaningless scrolling? Then ask, is my time building true wealth or just feeding the illusion of it? Because the truth is, time is the real currency of life. And once it's spent, you never get it back. Redefining rich. True wealth is invisible. It shows up in a slow morning with no rush, a meal shared without phones, a deep breath taken in peace, a conversation where you truly feel seen. These moments don't look impressive on a resume, but they nourish the soul like nothing else can. And unlike money, invisible wealth grows when shared. When you give your time, your attention, your compassion, you don't become poorer. You become richer. Reflect, what does being rich mean to you now? Ask yourself, if I had no money, but endless time and love, would I still feel poor? What invisible forms of wealth already exist in my life? Am I investing in peace or just spending on distraction? Part 7. Redefining success. The Garden of Self. Imagine walking through a garden filled with blooming flowers, roses, sunflowers, lilies, tulips. None of them are trying to outshine each other. The rose doesn't envy the height of the sunflower. The tulip doesn't wish it had the scent of the jasmine. Each flower simply blooms. Not to compete. Not to impress. But because blooming is what it was meant to do. That's true success. Yet, modern society teaches something very different. We're told that success is outward visibility, titles, numbers, followers, awards. We're sold the idea that the more others admire us, the more valuable we are. That if no one sees our efforts, they don't count. But Buddhism reveals a quieter, more honest truth. Success is not about standing out, it's about standing true. The exhaustion of trying to prove yourself. Let's be honest. The pursuit of traditional success often comes with a hidden cost: disconnection from yourself. You get the promotion, but you lose your evenings. You gain the praise, but feel more pressure than peace. You climb the ladder, but miss the view. And you start asking the question no resume can answer. If I'm winning, why do I feel so tired? You may be admired by others, but what if you've grown distant from your own soul? A tale of two lives. There once was a high-powered lawyer I met during a retreat. She had achieved everything: top university, prestigious firm, six-figure salary. But she confessed that every morning, she woke up with dread. "It's like I'm performing someone else's life," she said. Later that same day, I met a school bus driver named Dan. He worked early hours, made modest income, and had never been on a plane. But he said, "I love my life. I get to be part of kids' mornings. I play guitar in the evenings. I sleep well." One was successful by societal metrics. The other was fulfilled by his own. Which one would you rather be? Try this: a week of inner success. For 1 week, measure your success by how kind you were, how present you felt, how aligned your actions were with your values. Each evening, ask, did I act with integrity? Did I make someone smile? Did I honor what truly matters to me? If yes, then you succeeded, regardless of what the world saw. This is not idealism. It's clarity. It's refusing to let algorithms, promotions, or applause dictate your self-worth. The quiet power of purpose. True success is often invisible. It lives in the patience you show when it's hard, the way you listen without interrupting, the honesty you carry when no one's watching. The monk sweeping leaves in the courtyard is not less successful than the CEO. He is simply succeeding at his own purpose. And when you stop chasing someone else's path, you finally hear the voice of your own. Reflect: what if no one knew? Ask yourself, if no one could see my achievements, would I still pursue them? Is my definition of success inherited or chosen? What version of success feels most like me? The answers might surprise you. Because the greatest success story is not the one told in headlines, but the one written silently in your everyday choices. Part 8. The Myth of Multitasking. The Scattered River. Imagine a mighty river rushing down a mountain, focused, powerful, unstoppable. But as it reaches the delta, it splits into a dozen streams. The force weakens. The energy disperses. What was once unified becomes scattered. This is your mind on multitasking. In today's hyperconnected world, doing one thing at a time seems outdated. We juggle emails while eating lunch. We respond to texts during meetings. We scroll while brushing our teeth. It makes us feel productive. But in truth, we're not doing more. We're doing less, poorly. What science and Buddhism both know. Research shows that multitasking can reduce productivity by up to 40%. Your brain isn't designed to switch tasks rapidly. Each switch comes with a mental cost, called attention residue, that lingers and slows you down. Buddhism, thousands of years ago, already knew this. When walking, walk. When eating, eat. Zen teaching. It's not just poetic. It's practical. Single tasking, or one-pointed awareness, samadhi, is a core principle of Buddhist practice. It's how monks find peace in sweeping the floor or washing a bowl. Every action becomes a meditation. Not because they're doing less, but because they're doing what matters, with presence. A real-world story: the writer who couldn't write. A writer I once coached came to me saying she couldn't focus. Her desk was tidy, her deadlines clear, but she still struggled to write more than a few sentences at a time. After a little digging, the truth came out. While writing, she was checking email every 10 minutes, listening to podcasts in the background, responding to text messages, opening YouTube tabs for research. I asked her to do one thing: turn off everything except her writing app, and write in silence for 25 minutes a day. After 3 days, she said, I finally remembered what flow feels like. She wasn't blocked. She was simply too fragmented to focus. Try this, the 60-minute deep focus ritual. Choose one meaningful task: reading, writing, painting, cleaning, meditating. Then, 1. Put your phone on airplane mode. 2. Close all unrelated tabs or apps. 3. Set a timer for 60 minutes. 4. Do that one task. Nothing else. It will feel uncomfortable at first, like mental detox. But then, something miraculous happens. Your mind settles. Your attention sharpens. You remember what it's like to be fully in something. And that is where real life lives, not in the scattered surface, but in the deep now. The multitasking illusion: busy is not equal to successful. Many people wear busyness like a badge of honor. I have 10 tabs open. I'm always on the go. I never have time to rest. But let's be clear, busyness is not the same as value. It's often a disguise for avoidance, insecurity, or addiction to stimulation. Ask yourself, am I busy or just afraid to slow down? Do I fill my day to avoid sitting with myself? When was the last time I truly paid full attention to anything? Beneath all the noise, many of us are craving silence. Focus. Stillness. Not to be more productive, but to feel whole again. Part 9. The Freedom of Impermanence. The mandala in the sand. In some Tibetan Buddhist traditions, monks spend days, sometimes weeks, patiently crafting intricate mandalas out of colored sand. Every grain placed with care. Every line a work of art. Then, as soon as it's finished, they destroy it. Why? Because the lesson is more valuable than the artwork. Nothing lasts. And clinging to what cannot stay only creates suffering. This isn't nihilism. It's liberation. Impermanence, anicca, in Buddhist teaching, is not a tragedy to mourn, it's a truth to embrace. It reminds us, you don't need to hold on to everything to love it deeply. Why we resist change? Let's be honest. We crave permanence. We want our relationships to stay the same. Our youth to stay frozen. Our success to last forever. We build careers, identities, even families, hoping they'll give us lasting security. But nothing in this life is fixed. Jobs end. People leave. Bodies age. Even the strongest emotions fade. And when we refuse to accept this, we suffer. We fight time. We resist endings. We grip harder, thinking if we hold on tightly enough, we can stop the tide. But we can't. What we can do is let go with grace. A personal loss, a deeper peace. Several years ago, I lost someone I loved dearly, my grandmother. Her passing shook me. For months, I resisted the grief, holding onto her voice in voicemails, her scent in scarves, her words in letters. But the pain didn't ease until I allowed myself to accept the truth. She was gone. And that was okay. Because what she gave me, the love, the stories, the kindness, would never be taken. It was alive in me. Letting go of her physical presence didn't erase the connection. It deepened it. Impermanence doesn't mean we forget. It means we feel fully, knowing the moment is all we have. Try this, the 5-year rule. The next time you're overwhelmed, ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? Most of the time, the answer is no. The argument, the broken item, the embarrassing moment, they're just waves in time. What feels all-consuming now will one day fade into perspective. This question helps you live from a higher view, not ignoring emotions, but placing them in their true scale. It also reminds you, every storm passes. No feeling is final. Impermanence equals permission to live fully. Here's the twist, when you accept that everything is temporary, you don't love less, you love more. You stop taking people for granted. You say I love you more often. You savor meals instead of rushing through them. You sit with sunsets instead of scrolling past them. Because you know this won't last. And that's what makes it sacred. Reflect. What are you trying to make permanent? Ask yourself, what relationship, role, or identity am I afraid of losing? What would change if I held it more lightly? Could I appreciate it more by needing it less? Buddhism teaches, clinging is the cause of suffering. But letting go doesn't mean detachment. It means living with open hands, trusting that what is meant to be with you will stay as long as it needs to. Part 10. The Silent Power of Stillness. The Storm and the Anchor. Picture a ship caught in a violent storm. Waves slam against its sides, winds roar from every direction. But the captain doesn't try to outrun it. He lowers the anchor. The ship holds still, not because the storm has passed, but because it knows how to wait. This is what stillness is. It's not escape. It's rootedness. It's not inaction. It's intentional being. And in a world obsessed with doing, achieving, and showcasing, stillness is a radical act. Silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. Yet most of us fear it. We fill every gap with motion, emails during meals, podcasts during walks, notifications during sleep. We've mistaken activity for purpose. And in doing so, we've lost our most precious ability. The ability to just be. Why we run from stillness? Stillness can be uncomfortable, especially at first. When we stop, the noise within rises. Thoughts we've avoided. Feelings we've buried. Doubts, memories, longings. They all come up. So instead of facing them, we run faster, distracting ourselves with endless motion. We become busy not because we're productive, but because we're afraid of what we'll hear in the silence. But here's the truth. Stillness doesn't bring chaos, it reveals it. And once it's seen, it can be healed. The Buddha under the Bodhi tree. The story of the Buddha's enlightenment begins not with a great battle, but with stillness. He sat beneath the Bodhi tree, not running, not fixing, not controlling. Just sitting, fully present. And there, in the heart of silence, truth revealed itself. It wasn't given. It wasn't taught. It was remembered. And this same silence lives in you. You don't have to retreat to a monastery. You just have to pause long enough to hear it. A personal practice, 5 minutes to return. Every morning, before I open my phone, I sit for 5 minutes. No music. No agenda. Just stillness. At first, it felt strange, uncomfortable even. But slowly, those 5 minutes became sacred. A daily reunion with myself. A reminder that I am not my schedule, not my tasks, not my worries. I am here. And that is enough. You can start this too, right now. Sit still for 5 minutes. Let your thoughts come and go. Don't chase them. Don't analyze them. Just observe. You will begin to notice the space between thoughts, the breath that's always been with you, the calm beneath the chaos. And in that stillness, you may hear a whisper. You were never lost, just distracted. Stillness is power, not weakness. We live in a culture that glorifies speed. Move fast and break things. Hustle harder. Keep grinding. But what if the greatest strength isn't speed, but clarity? What if wisdom isn't born from doing more, but from pausing long enough to see what truly matters? The world's greatest insights didn't come in noise. They came in walks, solitude, silence. Einstein, Buddha, Thich Nhat Hanh. They all found depth not in busyness, but in stillness. Because when the water is still, you can finally see your reflection.